Hey everybody, KC here. So, I am reading the New York Times, and this is the New York Times for, as I'm taping this today, Wednesday, August 7th, 2024. And now listen, I normally read the New York Times online, but we get it delivered every day in paper form because this is content guy likes to read the paper version. So, it works out economically, so we do it, and it makes her happy. And I've been married 41 years, so if it makes her happy, I'm happy to keep, getting the paper. Anyway, so I'm reading the sports section. And let's see, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pages of sports. 6 pages of sports in the New York Times. Lots of Olympics, as one might expect. But the interesting thing to me is that there's not one story about the New York Mets and not one story about the New York Yankees. We're in August, okay? Both teams are certainly in contention, the Yankees more so than the Mets. But they're New York's baseball teams, and there's not one story about them. Now, this is not just a one-time thing because of the Olympics, right? Generally, because I check it out every once in a while, there's no story in the dead tree version of the New York Times about the New York Yankees or the New York Mets during baseball season. Just generally don't do it. Now, to be fair, if you go on The Athletic, which is the sports news website that the New York Times bought, you can find stories about the New York Mets and the New York Yankees. And because I'm a Mets fan, I get those headlines delivered to me every day so I can go right to them. But The Athletic is also providing the news for the printed version of the New York Times. They basically got rid of their entire sports staff, moved a few of them over to The Athletic, and basically said, we're just not the business we're going to be in anymore. I bring this up because it seems to me at some level, and let's be clear, I love the New York Times. Couldn't survive without the New York Times. But at some level, this is the abdication of what should be part of their responsibility, part of their mission as a local newspaper. Now, the New York Times isn't just a local newspaper. It is a national, international newspaper. I get that. But it seems to me it's still called the New York Times, and there ought to be a sports section that references local teams, local baseball teams during baseball season. I don't think that's asking too much. I will tell you that the New York Post and the Daily News, they both have sports sections, not as robust as they were 10, 15, 20 years ago when I was growing up, but they have robust sports sections. And I bring this up because I think it's important for every business to think about the notion of being essential, right? We talk about that a lot here on Morning News Beat. What are the things that you do that make you essential? Now, I recognize that newspapers are caught betwixt and between, right? Because they recognize a lot of all their audience growth pretty much is online. So they're trying to make that part of their business more robust. But at the end of the day, at least as long as there's a paper edition, this is really important to their image, their business model. It is the foundation of everything they do. And to not do the thing that people, I think, expect, not do the thing that was always sort of a core value within the organization, something that people found essential, being able to go to the paper and find not just the stories about your teams, but box scores, things like that. I think not providing any of that information, I think is a mistake. Listen, it's interesting. One of the things that I did as a newspaper reporter starting out working for Gannett is I did obituaries, right? And you did obituaries for pretty much anybody. You found out who died the day before and you had their obituary in the paper the next day. Papers don't do that anymore. Basically what happens is papers now, you got to pay to have your obituary in the paper. That's just the way it works. People put things on legacy.com. They charge by the word. And yet I would argue that a lot of people would pick up the paper and they would peruse the obituary section to see if anybody they knew had passed away. I think that's true, especially at a certain age. Again, if you're in the retail business, look at the things that make you relevant. Look at the things that make you essential. Look at the things that people count on you for and do them. And if you're going to think about adjusting that model, think very, very hard about whether you're doing it for your own financial well-being or you're doing it for the customer. I would argue that I'm not sure the Times was thinking at all about the customer when they made this decision about not carrying stories about the Mets and the Yankees. I think they were trying to say, listen, we only have that much space. Mets and Yankees are not that important. People want to find it, they find it online. Well, listen, maybe if you're trying to preserve the idea of having a printed newspaper, that's not the way to do it. I just think it's a mistake, and it's the kind of mistake that if you think it within the context of retailing, is the same kind of mistake that a lot of businesses make. Anyway, that's what's on my mind, and as always, I want to hear what's on your mind.